No one asked me what I want. I was just told that that's just not an option. Many people aren't struggling because they don't love their families enough. I think it's quite the opposite. They're struggling because they love their families deeply and they just don't know how to remain connected while also being true to themselves. Yeah. Or how
Yeah.
many sessions until my child's fixed? I hear that a
Yeah.
lot. Is it
Yeah.
four? Is it six? That's not how it
And
works, but
wait,
okay.
hold on. My crystal ball's over there. Let me go
Yeah.
get it and let me
Yeah.
tell
Let me
you.
let me get my crystal ball.
Well, I'm so excited to have you on the podcast. Our pre interview conversation was so stimulating. And I think that the audience is going to love the pearls that you're going to share in this episode. So, why don't you go ahead and just introduce yourself and tell us a bit about your work?
Absolutely. Hina, thank you so much for having me. I'm truly honored to be on your podcast. So, hi everyone. I'm Surbhi Vyas. I am a licensed professional counselor here in the state of New Jersey and licensed in Pennsylvania. My private practice is called Healing Lotus Mental Health, where I work with adolescents and adults, couples and families, with a particular focus on South Asian and immigrant communities. And as a second generation Indian American myself and daughter of immigrants, I've lived many of the tensions that my clients are currently experiencing, balancing individual desires with collective values and honoring family sacrifices while building a life that feels authentic, which can be tough to do, and navigating the unspoken
Mhm.
expectations that often just naturally come with immigrant families. So, providing culturally attuned therapy is just not an option in my lens. I think it's just a baseline, and I'm a true believer of that. So that's really what brings me here today. And I'm so excited to have this conversation with you.
Yeah. It's really evident that you working with adolescents and young adults and couples and families, like you get to see the whole system from the individual level to their whole network together.
Yeah.
And that allows you to
Yeah.
stay neutral and also compassionate for the people in the lives of your patients too.
Yeah, yeah. And I think for a lot of us who are in this field, we're just naturally intrigued by other people's perceptions. We don't have to agree with it, but I'm like, I want to know how you're thinking. Like, where'd you get that from? I
Mm-hmm.
call myself the defog button in your car. You're in the driver's seat, and I'm just the defog button. I just help you maybe see a little clearer, but you're the one in control.
That's a great point because the idea of therapy is still so foreign and stigmatized for
Yeah.
so many people. And so
Mhm.
feeling like you are empowered by your therapist is a very important thing to remember.
Yeah.
When we were talking about planning this episode, we discussed focusing on adolescents and their relationship with their parents. So maybe start there and tell us about what are some of the common issues that you've seen come up in your work with these individuals.
Yes. Yeah. So even prior to being a therapist, I was a school counselor in public
Hmm.
education for about 11 years. So it was funny enough, a lot of the South Asian families gravitated towards the one South Asian therapist that or counselor that was there. They're like, I want to talk to her, even though she's not
I
on my
bet.
caseload. And a lot of the issues, it was differing in certain values, things that the adolescent thought was really important. And the parent was just unable to validate it, that it was not important. For example, peer relationships. Parents would be like, friends come and go, focus on your academics, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
someone really wants to get involved in sports or into the arts. And they're like, but why aren't we taking calculus? You can, take calc now so you don't have to take it in college. And the clients or the students, I'd rather do this in my senior year and I could take calc in college. What's the big deal? And it was
Mm-hmm.
just frowned upon, right? There was a lack of leaning in. There was that lack of curiosity of why is it that my child wants this? Or from the child's perspective, why is my parent really pushing this? Is this from fear? Am I living their dream? And they don't know about it. Where is the disconnect here? I'm noticing there was just a difference in what seems to be important. So whether that's peer relationships, whether that's academics, whether that's, hey, whatever happens at home, you don't talk about it in school. There's no reason to bring that up. And kids would be like, this is a safe space. I want to bring it up. Right. And there was a disconnect in that too.
And that's is really interesting. You mentioned about the differences in values too, because that is such an important age when people are figuring out their identity and what matters to
Yeah.
them, and
Hmm.
the ways in which family members might impose
Hmm.
their ideals can feel constraining. What are some of the common issues that have been coming up?
A lot I've seen is around finances. We're seeing
Mm,
money very differently, whereas parents are, a lot of the parents have an immigrant background, and man, are we good at working hard, keeping our head down, right? And really good at making the money at some points or getting the degree. Whereas the child is like, I understand that money aspect is there and I understand that it's important, but there's a lot more to life also. And
mm,
sometimes it's tough for the parent to see beyond that. Like the blueprint was make the money. And now it's like, I haven't really had a chance to go beyond that. I'm busy parenting and I'm busy living life and growing a family, right? But for a child to see the other end of it and say, hey, I'm so thankful for this, but I also want you to see this. And there might be a lack of trust in the vision. A parent trusting the child of, okay, maybe I can learn something from my child. And again, I don't have to agree with it, but I can learn
mm.
from it.
Where does that come from, do you think, for the parents that focus on finances?
I think it comes from wanting safety and security and not the fear of this all can't be for nothing, right? We sacrificed so much. We left our home country. We left what we knew and had to start from scratch. It could have been exciting, doesn't have to be a daunting thing. Some were very excited, but you have built such a rapport, right? And wishing that that same grit and resilience goes to your children as well and that they don't take it for granted. I think there it comes from a fear lens often.
So, what does the financial focus from the parents' side look like? Do you see it being the financial freedom and then all the way to
Yeah.
frugality and the spectrum?
So it depends because for the parent side, the relationship they have with the money could be really different, right? For some, they may work really hard. They have gathered up the finances, they gather their acorns, and they're living a good life and hoping that the same happens for their children and that they don't take it for granted. Others, they have made it this far. There's some clients that I'll see who have more of a frugal mindset who are like, my parents are doing great and they're well off, but I think they spend in excess and I don't need all of that. I'm fine, and it's kind of reverse. The emotional relationship we have with money and the meaning that we tie to it is very different generation to generation as well.
So, how does the adolescent interpret the excessive spending of the parent? Like, why does adolescent think their parent's spending more or too much?
Yeah, right. So they're thinking that if they're spending so much, why is my spending limited, right? If you kind of limited your spending,
Mm,
maybe I'll have a little bit more freedom. So then they take it personally. I've seen that as well.
mm,
Of you're kind of going, buying this and that. It's well, if you didn't do that, maybe I could go on this trip with my friends and it wouldn't have been that much of a big deal. So I'm noticing there's just differences in their perception when it comes to money also. And but then parents are like, do as I say, not as I do. I'm seeing a lot of that too. Okay, I
mm,
earn this, I can do this, and I can do
mm.
whatever I want. And I don't need a stamp of approval from my child to do what I want. But then the power battle comes. There's a struggle there. So I see that as well.
It's really interesting because one would argue that the parents saying, hey, I've earned this money, I'm going to spend as I wish, would seem very individualistic, right? And for the kids who are growing up here, who are often exposed to the individualistic culture, that would kind of
Hmm.
make sense. But I wonder
Hmm.
if there is sort of this like aura of collectivism. Like in general,
Hmm.
they've been raised within collectivistic households. And so the
Yeah.
expectation of sacrificing is
Yeah.
quite pervasive. Why does a kid feel entitled to their parents' funds in some ways?
Yeah. It's because there's been so many set expectations, right, over the years that parents have put on their children. And not saying that the expectations
Mm.
are in a rude way or like they're jabbing them and with their words. They want the best for their kid, but I think that the delivery and the tone is something that can use a lot of work. So sometimes children or adolescents will take that personally and kind of try to be the mirror for their parent. And that's where I see a lot of that power struggle of if I'm seeing something that's not sitting right with me, I want to be able to have that conversation with you. I don't have to agree with everything that you're doing. And I think that's where that shade of individuality comes in too, right? Because
Mm.
growing
This is a
up, it's like
child to
whatever,
their parent.
this is the child to their parent. So
Okay.
anytime we would see, growing up, anything our parents did, it was great. Our parents are God.
Hmm.
What do you mean? They could do no wrong, right? It's perfect. And what I always try to remind parents is that your kid is not looking for a perfect parent. That's actually not real. It's not an
Hmm.
ideal standard. So I think having a more humanistic approach, kind of bringing the walls down, bringing vulnerability in, you can learn a lot about each other. And I think that's where therapy brings a lot of great modalities into.
The individuality that these teens and adolescents, young adults are showing is this push to have an opinion about the
Mhm.
behaviors of their parents as well.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
You mentioned relationship with money earlier.
Yes. Yes.
And can you share a little bit more about what you see within that
Mhm.
spectrum and how parents might be wanting their kids to have a certain relationship with money?
Yeah. So for example, obviously without details and stuff, but I have a client who is an older female client, South Asian client, does really well for herself and has worked really hard, but is having a tough time connecting with her daughter. And at times, she's told her daughter many times that we're financially well off. We have no issues financially. We're really blessed, all of that. And if you're in the city and you miss the train, can you, for the love of God, take an Uber and just come home? Like, why, I don't need you going anywhere at 2 a.m. finding where. And the daughter is, I don't want to say she has a frugal mentality, but she's trying to bring logic into it. I just don't want to spend $250 if I don't have to. She has other ways of getting home and she's fine with it. And she said, I can tell you where I am. I can call you. I'm fine. But it's tough for the two of them to get on the same page because it's not like they don't have the means for it. But now the adolescent is, I don't want to do that. I don't want to spend that kind of
Mm.
money.
Wait, you know what's so interesting is that I assume the mom has gone through a journey to get to
Hmm.
financial well being, where her
Absolutely.
relationship with money has probably evolved as the family has acquired greater means and has now gotten to this
Right.
point where we have the money in the bank. So
Hmm.
you don't have to be stingy and like, let's
Right.
prioritize your safety, well being, etc.
Right.
But the daughter is still on her own journey
Right.
and figuring out what her relationship with money is or has already figured it out and is standing by those values. But now the
Yeah.
conflict is between her relationship with money and her mom's relationship with money. So that seems
Right.
one end of the
Right.
spectrum, perhaps.
That's one, yeah, exactly. So that's one end of it.
Yeah.
The other end is the parent is in this situation, the mom is very frugal with her spending, and that's kind of how she's always been.
Hmm.
And the daughter likes, I should at least have a budget or something or an allowance because she's 17 now and she'll work but the money goes in some account that she doesn't have access to. I don't know when she's going to get
Mm.
that money, when she goes to college, when she gets married, who knows when
Mm.
she has access to this money, but it's not right now because it's
Her
as if
parents
the
had
parent
who?
has access to the money.
Okay,
Right. So it's
gotcha.
as if the parent doesn't trust the child with the money that they're earning, right? So the
Mm.
autonomy is cut off. It's okay, I don't trust you with getting this money because you're going to waste it. But how about we have some financial literacy around that? Because is the expectation for the child to be as frugal as the mom is? Because that's also unrealistic at times. So the parents are
Mm.
like, for the month, we'll give you $100. and you can do what you want
Hmm.
with the $100. And the clients, I can go to the beach with some friends, and between parking and getting on the beach, it's gone. Or
Yeah.
getting a burrito, which is like
Right.
$10 or more, it's
Yeah.
gone. So it's like
Hmm.
unrealistic expectations. So I'm seeing those are two extremes that I see in my practice.
In that example, there's the trust piece that comes up too. There's the building of autonomy. The building of autonomy actually is across the board there with the two examples that you shared, like
Hmm.
helping a child become autonomous, have agency to decide how they spend their earned money, as well as how they decide whether or not to spend money that is provided from the family, even like the on the
Right.
former example.
Right.
And and that piece of autonomy, oh man, it's comes up so
Hmm.
often in the work with
Hmm.
Desi's. How do you understand this tension around autonomy from both the adolescent perspective or the young adult perspective, as well as
Yeah.
the parent's perspective?
Yeah, great question. So when working with parents, thing
Hmm.
I really love to bring into session are metaphors. I'm a sucker
Hmm.
for metaphors, and there's one about the vision of a kite comes to mind. So, when you're flying a kite, like if you're the parent and say your child is the kite, you're flying the kite, but the kite's not right in front of your face, right? It can't be, otherwise it's not going to fly, but you're still
Mm.
holding on with the string. So you're still there helping guide. But then without the wind, which would really account for, let's say, the variables of this world, being in a new country, not having gone through the education system here, you have to trust it. You got to trust the wind. It's not always going to be great, but you still have your hand on the string. So you're still there to help guide your child, but the child or the adolescent has to take the risks. And that's something that only they could do themselves. The parent can't do that, even though they want to, but that's
Hmm.
just going to enable the child. So that's a way to describe autonomy with this
Yeah.
metaphor.
And that, I mean, you can't both be the person holding the kite, like flying the kite, and be the kite. So
Right.
you recognize that the
Right.
parent is the one holding the spool, and
Yeah.
right, that's what it's called. And then
Yeah.
and the
I didn't
and
say it, so you're brave.
I'm like, and like you're over here, like it's you, and then you have it's called, what is it, patang, right? I'm
Yeah, the
trying to,
padang, right.
yeah.
Right. I
Now that
just
I have
think
a
about the
daughter,
kite festival. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And in order for the kite to soar, you have to release more string for it to fly
Yeah.
further,
Yeah.
right? And so giving
Hmm.
them more and more autonomy that is
Right.
congruous with their age and development,
Yeah.
like stage of life too. And you see
Hmm.
that that's like the biggest complaint is like my curfew is 8 p.m. and I'm a
Right.
16-year-old. This is when people go out to dinner in my age. And that string is too short and feeling like the kite is not getting to reach the peaks that it's wanting to.
Right, right.
Um,
And what stops those conversations from happening, right? Like what goes
mm,
through a parent's mind when they're like, oh, wow, I can't be the kite and fly the kite. Sit with that. Sit with that feeling for a second. Okay, I'm realizing that, but I don't want to believe it. You're kind of going through grief right there.
mm,
And you're having this epiphany moment. And it may take some time. Maybe that's the
mhm.
furthest you get with the parent child conversation that day. And we have to be okay with that too because it's a fragile topic.
And the grief is a really interesting way of looking at it because the sense of loss of that a parent might feel, and parents often
Mhm.
feel because of this idea of them being having expectations for the role that they're going to play in their children's lives, because when they immigrated from India, Pakistan, South Asia, they are have a snapshot of what life was like and what relationships were
Mhm.
like. And I know we talked
Mhm.
about this about it being called
Yeah.
frozen in time, where the parents immigrated in, let's say, 1985, 70s, 80s, 90s, and they took however society was functioning at that time, whatever relationships were like, what expectations and roles were like, and they they were frozen and brought over. And so their children now are being expected to live out those expectations, even though those respective countries have evolved, people have evolved, society has changed. But the
Mhm.
adolescent living here now is having to live like they did in 1985, potentially, or let's say
Yeah.
adolescents now in the 90s, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, I see that I mean, in my own life, right? I don't really disclose, but when if I go back to India to see my cousins there, I'm like very different from the expectations.
Hmm.
And I sometimes I feel like they're way more modern than I ever will be. And
Hmm.
I'm like, it's not that I'm like reserved, like, but I mean, there's certain things, right? That I'll like
Hmm.
partake in a certain puja or I'll do a certain fast. And I'm like, I enjoy it. No one's telling me to do it. I'm find it fine. And they're like, well, we don't do that here. That's our moms and moms did that. We don't do that. And I'm like, okay. So I don't know.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
You feel a little confused there. It's what's happening.
Yes. Yeah. And then that
Yeah.
comes back to figuring out your identity and feeling like, okay, I'm not fully American and I'm not
Right.
fully Indian either, because I'm
Yeah.
clearly a little bit of a mixture of both in that blend. And there's no
Yeah.
playbook for how to be as
Right.
a bicultural individual growing up here.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why
Um,
narrative therapy is so great because it's
mhm.
it's a skill. It's a skill. No one teaches you. You have to, it's very conscious effort. It doesn't happen passively at all.
For those people who don't know what narrative therapy is or how you might
Yeah.
use narrative therapy techniques in practice, what does that look like?
Yeah. So think about writing your own story, right? So you are the character in your own story. And in therapy, the therapist is asking you, what do you want to do in this story? What's your role in this story? What do you not want to do in this story? And it brings that autonomy back rather than, oh, this is what you just should do because that's what the society expects you to do. Or what are people going to say? What are they going to think? You have to play the rule book here. And it's now questioning the rule book. It's now
Mm,
saying that if it is a society standard, at the end of the day, it's an opinion. This is a thought pattern. So that's what I love bringing up. And sometimes I'll meet with adults and they're like, no one asked me that. I'm like, so what do you want in this situation? Do you want to give him a divorce? Do you not? And they're like, no one asked me what I want. I was just told that that's just not an option.
mm,
Right? And, you're 45, 50 years old, and it's like, no one asked me
mhm.
that.
Wow, it's kind of like a mic drop moment, but the opposite of that, because now they have a mic to be able
Yeah.
to share what
Yeah.
their heart wants.
Yeah.
What,
Yeah.
where do immigrant parents who grew up in a different culture get stuck when
Yeah.
it comes to autonomy and their children here as they're raising their children?
Yeah, great question. It's something that they have not experienced themselves. So you're trying to speak to your child in a language that they don't understand. And they're speaking to you in a language that you don't understand. So this increases the distance in the emotional relationship, right? That's where that gap forms. And then that's where kids or adolescents will naturally start hiding things or not wanting to be vulnerable because it's not being appreciated. So, in situations like this, a parent is looking at a child trying to be autonomous and they're demonizing it. And they're saying, how dare you? This is a sign of disrespect. How can you do this to me?
Mm,
And then they take it, and again, I say they very lightly. I'm not painting. I see many great parents who are right there with their children. So this is just something that I've seen, a certain percentage, where their autonomy is taken personally. It's I'm not a good enough parent, or I haven't been able to provide you with everything that you need, that now you need autonomy. It's as if you're rejecting me. And we're trying to decipher that as it's not a rejection, it's an evolution in its own way.
mm.
Lean in with that curiosity of like, where is that coming from? Right. And let's talk about it.
When an adolescent is asking for more freedom to make
Hmm.
decisions for themselves, to be more
Hmm.
autonomous, that
Hmm.
parents sometimes will take that personally as
Okay.
criticism of them that
Yeah.
they're wanting that freedom because a parent is potentially not providing
Mhm.
what to them? Guidance? Is it?
Guidance, support, right?
Mm,
And then blaming the American culture. I see this a lot.
mhm.
We came here to this country and my child is getting influenced by the American culture. And it's, well, you can't come from South Asia and say you're just going to Kuman and coming home. No disrespect to Kuman, but we've all been there. We've all been there.
Yeah.
You can't pick and choose of like where your child is going and who's going to be their friend. You're servicing the
Mhm.
entire child, their social, emotional health. So along with their academics. And I think we come here for a better life. And we're talking about academically, so we have a better
Mhm.
career. But the whole social emotional learning is just not as important. It's tough to measure. It's not
Mhm.
given in accolades. You don't get awards for a great social emotional, right? We don't get
Mhm.
awards for that or get recognized for that. So what's the point, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So I'm seeing a lot of disconnect there too.
Parents taking it personally, and
Hmm.
then the kids trying to open up potentially, be vulnerable or share their needs, but it's getting shut
Hmm.
down sometimes
Hmm.
by the parents.
Hmm.
And so then the kids left to dealing with their emotions that they're coming to the parent with a problem, and now they're getting maybe criticized, or their parent is doubling down on
Yeah.
the rules of the house, so to speak.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
then the child walks away and is like, okay, now I feel even more anxious, or I feel even more alone or
Yeah.
misunderstood.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Alone is a big one.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
want to go there and ask you about what that looks like. Just for a second, though, for the parent's perspective,
Hmm.
what is a parent's perspective when they're trying to hold and fly the kite closer to them?
Hmm. Their perspective is control, and letting go of that control is really, really tough. Because if I, as a parent, let go of control, that means I'm not parenting correctly because their parents didn't lose control, right? Autonomy was not
Mm,
something that was highly regarded. So it's confusing, it's unsettling for them as well. So if I have the kite closer to me, at least I can try, I'm closer in proximity, but it doesn't mean that you can catch it. It's there, but it's an
mhm,
illusion, right? And it's
mhm,
really enabling the child. But for some reason, I mean, how many of us have seen adult South Asian men and women who are really, really close to their parents and have not had and not been able to develop their autonomy, even past marriage, past having kids, they still gravitate towards that people pleasing of getting that approval from their parent. That's when the kite is right in front of the parent and it doesn't move. So
mhm,
that means you're enabling your child and they're not allowed to gain those critical thinking skills, right? Imagine using a GPS all the time, never opened a map in your life. You don't know how a compass works. That's frightening. But that's
mhm.
a lot of us. That's a lot of the world.
Yeah, yeah.
So there's a
And
part of our brain that we don't use anymore.
letting go of control from the parent, I see it also where there is a standard, like this is the kind of parent I need to be because that's how I was parented. And look, I turned out great. So I want to carry that
Right.
forward. I
Mhm.
also wonder if that control piece that you were talking about has to do with how it's expected in this hierarchy, that this is a way, like, my child needs to respect me. They have to follow by what I say because I'm wise, right? I've seen the world. Like, how many times you hear
Yeah.
Desi immigrant parents saying, I've moved across countries and I like came here with no money and I figured all this out and this is
Mhm.
all to protect you. So, hey,
Right.
don't stay out too late or bad things happen at night. Like those kinds
Right.
of narratives.
Right. Or the sacrifice piece of
Hmm.
look everything that I've done for you, rather than saying that, hey, if you're out past a certain time, my heart starts palpitating and I can't go to sleep because my worst fear is that you're going to get kidnapped. Because when I was younger, I had a friend and she left and she never came home. And that I still sit with that. And I sometimes I see her face randomly. I don't know where she is. And that creeps me out. This is a parent telling a
Mhm.
kid of like,
Mhm.
is something that happened. And I want to sit with this feeling. Now a child has space to say, oh my God, mom, that sucks. Okay. What can I do to make your palpitation a little less? Maybe instead of I come home at 8, maybe I could do 9 and then I could text you at 8:30 and tell you where I am and I'll be home by 9. Maybe we just do an hour extension. Now the child's also not saying, "You know what, mom, I'm coming at midnight. I'll do whatever I want." Right? We're
Mhm.
not saying that. We're trying to meet them halfway and saying, "All right, instead of 8, can
Yeah.
I do 9 and I'll talk to you?"
So my first reaction
Yeah.
was, okay, well, this
Yeah.
happened to one person you knew in your life. You know
Yeah.
how sometimes
Mhm.
it's like you hear this one
Mhm.
story and it's super
Yeah.
extreme, and then
Mhm.
that becomes the benchmark for what the freedoms look like for the child. So I
Right.
can speak of that angst as a teenager and just the
Right.
rebelling phase as a teenager,
Mhm.
where it's like, well,
Mhm.
how can that happen one time? How can you
Right.
limit me because of that?
Right.
However, what you're saying is if the parents are more aware and can speak calmly to their children about their
Mhm.
worries, and child in some ways can also validate the parents, then they
Mhm.
can see each other and
Yeah.
work towards a solution that makes both them feel content,
Yeah. Yeah.
as opposed to
And
this
build the
like power
trust.
struggle. Hmm.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
build the trust between them. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so you avoid the power struggle and you build the trust
Yeah.
and work towards increasing the children's autonomy through that.
Hmm. Yeah. Absolutely.
You know, one thing I would think about, you said alone,
Hmm.
and children can feel
Yeah.
alone when their desires or wishes or are immediately shut down.
Yeah.
Say more about that and what you see in your practice. Because sometimes the question of why should my kid go to therapy? Or like, why should I
Hmm.
support this? Right? Talk to us, talk to like the family
Hmm.
psychiatrist comes
Yeah.
up
Yeah.
often. So, how do you navigate
Hmm.
that in your practice?
Yeah, so when it comes to parents who are saying, talk to me, not saying that you can't talk to your parent, but there's emotion that's in that relationship. That's two ways. Whereas in a therapeutic relationship, the therapist or psychiatrist is not emotionally invested in the relationship. It's very objective. And that's where you can see a bit more of a clear objective, a clear understanding of what the client is looking for. So a therapist is not going to say, "Oh, when I was your age, this is what I did." It's irrelevant. That's not going to go anywhere. It's more about what have you heard, right? So there's more questions towards the client and understanding their perspective rather than the therapist giving their 2 cents because that's not a therapeutic relationship,
And that's
right?
often what parents will say. When I was
Right.
your age, I came home at 5 p.m.
Right, right. And I often tell parents that when you express yourself and say, when I was this age, there's still some healing that you have not gone through because that part is not relevant. What I love for parents to preface that conversation with is, hey, I had something similar growing up. You mind if I share that, or you don't think that's going to be helpful? Preface it first and get buy in from your child first before you disclose all this stuff that they're probably in one ear and out the other, and it's not going anywhere.
So asking for
Right.
permission to share a
Mhm.
story like that, which
Yeah.
inherently is a parent sharing the power with their
Hmm.
children. So instead of having
Yeah.
power over their we're saying children, but here we mean adolescents, young
Right.
adults. But
Yeah. Hmm.
instead of having power over them, you're sharing power with your
Yeah.
grown child.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
what difference does it make when parents approach their kids asking permission?
The child has buy in the conversation, right? They're not being spoken to, they're spoken with, and they're in the conversation. And that in itself is empowering that their words also matter. And it's such a beautiful feeling because they're feeling seen and heard and validated by their parent. So it's a beautiful thing if it can happen in home.
Mm-hmm. the feeling seen is such a core need
Yeah.
that we
Mm-hmm.
have as humans, especially developmentally, as we're figuring our
Mm-hmm.
own identity and
Mm-hmm.
trying to I love the kite metaphor, but trying to
Mm-hmm.
like soar and really
Yeah.
flow in the wind and lean
Yeah.
into the different variables that are there and like the challenges that life presents. And at the same
Mm-hmm.
time, knowing that our parents can see us and
Yeah.
respect us and trust that we can navigate a situation is so
Yeah.
powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And when we don't get in the house, we go
Mm-hmm.
outward. This is why the friends matter so much, right? You hear a lot of Desi
Yeah.
parents
Mm-hmm.
complaining where it's like, you spend so much time with friends, spend time at home. We have relatives coming,
Yeah.
like stay home. And
Yeah. Sounds like a
the kids,
nightmare.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
all around. And
Right.
it's like the kid has some needs that are being met
Yeah.
in those other
Mm-hmm.
relationships. And so can you be curious about that
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and provide what's missing in the home? But in order to
Mm-hmm.
provide what's missing in the home, I'm wondering if there's something that parents need to do themselves to
Yeah.
even be willing to discover that.
Yeah. When parents go to therapy themselves, they have a
Mm,
better relationship with themselves.
yeah.
Right? They get to understand that little girl or little boy that lives inside of them gets some validation that didn't happen decades ago. And they can heal a little bit. And then that version of them is now a parent for their child. So for parents, especially South Asian parents, there's this idea of sacrifice, right? Sacrificing for our kids, and we do everything for our kids and the family. When you go to therapy, maybe you're not doing it for yourself in that moment. I say do it for your kids. Maybe that's where we start. Because if we right away start with you're doing this for you, it's tough for them to process. But it's, hey,
Mm,
you might have a better relationship with your child if you try therapy. Try 4 sessions and then don't come back again. Fine. Just give it a try. I'm a big believer of therapy not being a lifelong thing.
hmm
It should be fluid. 4 to 6 weeks, maybe more, 12 weeks, go out into the real world, come back. It should be fluid. It shouldn't be something that you're forced to do. So, and you have to be getting something out of it. If you're not getting anything out of
hmm
therapy, change the therapist or talk to a therapist. I'm a big believer of
hmm
that. So
hmm
I digress, but yeah,
No,
I
that's so
think there's a lot
important.
of healing. Yeah, there's a lot of healing for the parent through therapy, and then asking open-ended questions, encouraging to ask open-ended questions with your child. Not how was your day, but what was something that didn't go your way today? That's it, right?
Mm,
What's something that was unexpected that happened today that you didn't think was going to happen, right?
mm,
It's more than who did you sit at lunch or do you have homework, right? Those can kind
hmm
of fall pretty flat. But hey, were you feeling anxious about anything today? Like when you got up, was what was the first thing that came to mind? Right? So
hmm
all of those things, I think the open-ended questions are great because you get a deeper understanding of where your child is and kind of gain
hmm
a pulse on their emotional health. So you can meet them there, right? Rather than, oh, this is where your math test is. Did you study for the math test? It's like, yeah, I did, but this guy I have a
Yeah.
crush on is going to be there and his girlfriend's going to sit next to him and she's giving me weird looks and I can't concentrate on this test, right? That doesn't come
So now
out.
you're a parent.
That doesn't come
Yeah.
out, right?
Uh-huh. Those questions that you shared are so much deeper and help the kid develop their emotional well-being and just emotional awareness.
Mhm.
And my mind goes to how often are the parents aware of what was unexpected that day? Well, didn't go
Mhm.
as intended and what impact it
Mhm.
had on them, right? Like what were they worried about when they
Mhm.
first woke up in the morning? So when you do have the parent, and let's say the parent said, you know
Mhm.
what, I'm going to do this because I think I want to show up better in my relationship with my daughter. I'm going to go to
Yeah.
therapy alone or with my
Mhm.
daughter.
Mhm.
What are some of the ways you help therapy naive individuals
Mhm.
develop who didn't grow up being asked what they were
Yeah.
feeling, develop
Yeah.
that awareness?
Yeah. I first asked them, what are they most proud of? Just about themselves. Just looking back at their life so
Mm,
far, what's their core memory of things that stand out to them? Maybe it was getting a great score when they were like in fourth grade and that stuck out to them when the teacher called them in front of the class. It's like, okay, why did that mean so much to you? Or how was the family life growing up? What was your relationship like with your mom? What was it like with your dad? Were they present? Were they not? Do you have siblings? What's your relationship like with them? Did your parents treat
mhm,
you and your siblings differently? Right? So we kind of start at the beginning of what they actually remember and understanding where their core values are coming from, why certain things are important to them now as an adult. And
mm,
oftentimes it's things that they may have seen from their parent, whether it's their mom or their dad, that they really clung on to. And they
mm,
never questioned it. They didn't have a reason to question it. And I'm like, okay, now we're getting somewhere. Why didn't we question it? If no one was going to know your opinion, if no one was going to get affected, if you can say it out loud, what do you really think about the way your dad acted through these different situations, right? And it's, can I say it out loud? Can I?
mhm,
It was kind of messed up. It was kind of messed up. Okay, why was it messed up? Why are you doing the same thing? Right? It's like
mhm,
it's a learned behavior. So for someone who's
mhm,
therapy naive, I really tried to understand their biopsychosocial of where they are coming from, what their family dynamic was, and who they surrounded themselves with, who's important to them. I often say, who's in your front row? If you're on stage, who are like the 10 people in your front row who are rooting you on? And
love
that gives
that.
me a good sense, yeah, of who's important to them.
Mm.
That's
And
where I start.
that's so beautiful because that allows your patient to
Mhm.
develop some self compassion that, oh, these are learned behaviors. This is why I'm continuing to repeat this pattern. And that then is a conduit for compassion for other people, for their family members,
Yeah.
for their
Yeah.
children, and the self healing leading to a betterment of relationships in their
Right.
present life. There's so much that the past holds and shapes the way, obviously, that we live and
Mhm.
act and breathe.
Mhm.
So if that's on the parent end, now
Mhm.
with that adolescent who's trying to figure out whether to act in the way that they want to or do what they know is expected of them. So
Mhm.
how do you help adolescents navigate decision making?
Yeah, great question. So when it comes to expectation, asking first is this an expectation from the parent or is this something that they want? Right?
Mm,
Sometimes it matches. Like even though it is an expectation, they do actually secretly want that for themselves too. So it's not that it always has to clash, but bringing in their own voice to the conversation is really important. If the expectation is not what they want, how do they communicate that and really talk to themselves first? Why don't I want this as an expectation? What do I have said? What do I say differently to myself? What's my inner voice telling me instead? And why does that sound like a better idea? Right? So, am I meeting this expectation that my parents set out for me? Is it out of guilt? Is it out of shame? Is it people pleasing, right? Is
mm,
it to show like the auntie down the street just to like, I'm doing better than your daughter is? To like,
mhm,
where is it coming from? Like,
mhm,
what's the root cause or what's the motivation behind it? And I think that gives you a better glimpse as to where this expectation is coming from and who it's for. Because if it's not for you, that's where we have to talk about it. And we have to say, hey, mom, dad, I know that this is an expectation that you have for me. What if I don't meet that expectation? What's your fear? What will happen? Am I going to be a failure? What's going to happen if I don't meet this? Let's go down that rabbit hole, right?
mm,
Because that's scary. It's like, no, 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 what do you mean you're not going to meet it? Of course you're going to meet it. You're going to do great. It's like, and we
mhm.
just stop there,
Right.
right?
Give them reassurance. Yeah.
Give them reassurance. Yeah.
I love what you said, Surbhi, about really unpacking what is driving the decisions that you make. And one of the metaphors that I use in my practice a lot is thinking about yourself as driving a bus. And so you have all these passengers in your bus. So you have anxiety and saying, oh my
Mm.
gosh, you're going to disappoint your parents. So you better hide your TikTok profile from them so that they
Yeah.
don't
Hmm.
see all of the stuff you're saying about challenges of being in that family, right?
Right, right.
But or is it the guilt? Like, I'm going to feel bad. I'm going to feel
Hmm.
really bad if I lie to them. You
Yeah.
have all of these emotions who sometimes
Hmm.
take the driver's seat, and that's
Hmm.
the thing steering you. And if that's driving the
Hmm.
bus, right? Like that's how you're moving forward. Is that how you
Yeah.
want to be versus what your values are? What kind of daughter you want to be? I want to be honest.
Hmm.
I want to be respectful. I want to be authentic. Okay. So
Hmm.
then what does an authentic daughter do in this
Right,
situation where you
right.
could make maybe the easier decision of
Hmm.
lying, hiding, concealing,
Hmm.
or sharing what you truly want and seeing if there's space for that. Now, of course, there's all these other
Yeah.
factors there, right? Like feeling safe that you can share with your parents,
Yeah,
emotionally
of
safe,
course.
etc.,
Hmm.
physically safe, of course, too. And
Hmm.
but it's like always having to make a decision of who's in the driver's seat or asking yourself that.
Yeah, yeah,
And
that's a great point.
how do you help someone think through their decisions and whether it's for their parents or for them?
Yeah. So a great metaphor that I love to do is before they share something with their parent, is this putting a brick down in a bridge to build the trust, right? So if I'm building trust, it's something that I want to do, right? I'm
Mm,
putting the brick down. This is a decision I'm in versus I'm taking this brick away. I'm not building the bridge. This isn't something I want to do. This is something you want me to do. So
mm,
is this helping me inch closer to you if I follow through with this? Or am I feeling more separated from you? That helps you decipher right away who this is for, right?
mm,
Because if it's self sacrificing, we can resent a parent down the line of, you made me do this. Or there's judgment that's attached to this. If I don't do this, you're going to judge your own child. And that's also not emotionally safe to be there either. So I'll often
mm,
see adolescents just go with it because they don't want to face the judgment from their own parent. But that's
mm.
a great way of deciphering between the two.
If the thing that you're doing, if it makes you feel closer to your loved
Yeah.
one, that's a
Hmm.
brick that's building a bridge of connection. If
Yeah.
it's a decision where you might be suppressing your needs to
Hmm.
appease a parent, and it feels like you're doing something for them, right? So you're moving towards
Yeah.
them, but actually you feel unsettled and like your needs are being suppressed. So in the long
Hmm.
term, that
Hmm.
makes that bridge pretty vulnerable because it is actually taking away a brick or
Yeah.
an important piece to that
Yeah,
connection.
yeah. You can't take your oxygen mask off and put it on your parent, right? Then you can't
Mm-hmm.
breathe. It's suffocating for you, right? So
Mm-hmm.
really having that visual for yourself too. And if you are suffocating, being able to communicate that of that doesn't define the type of child that you are. That doesn't define your potential. It doesn't define the type of parent they are. If you're not complying, it doesn't mean they're a bad parent, doesn't mean you're a bad kid, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
perception. So being
Mm,
able to have that roundtable discussion of, hey, I know why you want me to do this, but I really want you to see where I'm coming from too. And you don't have to agree with it, but I want to create space where I can at least express it safely
mm.
to you. Right.
Um,
Right.
and then sometimes, parents will turn around and then they'll say, hey, I sacrificed so much for you. So
Yeah.
listen to me. And then the kids will say, well, I never asked you to.
Right.
How do you deal with that? How do you address that in your practice?
So the sacrifice, I think, needs some validation. What that meant to them, to the parent. What is sacrifice? What did they do that they didn't choose to do? And what would they have done instead? Right? And
Mm,
opening up that book, that gives you some idea as to what they wish perhaps happened. And they may feel really guilty in saying that because, hey, you got these beautiful kids, you have this life. I'm not saying I don't want these kids, but, when I was like in college, I had an opportunity to major in something else and I could have studied abroad and I really wanted to live in this other country. but I got married and came to the States instead. And that's not really what I wanted. But I'm so thankful everything happened because I have you as my kid, right? But we parents
Mm,
sugarcoat that of it's not saying I don't want this life or I don't want you. It's just like I had other plans, but that never happened, right?
mm-hmm,
So that's what maybe sacrifice to that particular parent meant. They couldn't go to culinary school in Paris and they really wanted
mm-hmm,
to, but that wasn't an option, right? So
mm,
but now you get a deep dive as to, I didn't know you ever wanted to do that, mom. Or I didn't know that was a dream of yours. Let's take some classes together. Let's
mm-hmm,
do a trip, just you and me to Paris next summer. Why don't we do, like, how can
mm-hmm,
we don't have to leave it in the past. We can still do something with it now. So I think that's where that sacrifice piece comes in. We need some room to let it breathe and take up space and what that means to the parent rather than
mm.
the child defining it for the parent.
So there, the child being curious about the sacrifice and the parent being willing to name it and talk about it, even because, like you said, the guilt
Hmm.
shows up so quickly.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
and if you were to expand on the sacrifice you made, your child can get to know you better and
Yeah,
can help you in the healing. And that
right.
then might also help you empower your child to make the
Hmm.
decisions that they deem are best for them.
Right, right. It's a great
Mm,
feedback loop to have in a
yeah.
relationship. It's empowering in both directions.
Yeah. It's so different
Yeah,
than I
yeah.
sacrificed so much for you. I never asked you to, right? Like that
Right,
conversation feels like it shuts down before you even started.
right. Yeah,
Mm,
yeah.
mm,
Yeah, I didn't ask you to do any of that,
yeah.
but what did you have to leave behind? Or what do you think is a void in your life right now that you wish you had?
Mm,
Imagine a child asking that to a parent, who your parent was before they were your parent. They were a person. They,
mm-hmm,
they had friends and they also disagreed with their parents and they had arguments. What was that like? What was your pet peeve growing up?
mm-hmm,
What got you angry? What got under your skin? I want to know. Or who was your best friend in school, right? And this idea of that sacrifice comes back again of I had all these friends. I had this social life. People knew who I was, right? And now I'm coming
mm-hmm,
here and now I'm like someone's wife on a green card. And I don't know, I have to change my path and take other courses and find a whole new life. I didn't ask for that, right? So
mm-hmm,
what made her say yes to that marriage? What went through her mind? What was it like for her to navigate motherhood? Postpartum without her mom by her side. What was that like? We don't talk about
mm-hmm,
that. We're just like, I'm here, you raised me,
mm-hmm.
now I have complaints, right?
Yeah.
So we see a lot of that in therapy.
It's so neat to see the same story come up again. It's like I didn't have a
Mm-hmm.
choice. And now the
Mm-hmm.
child saying, like, I'm not having a choice. And that's where the
Mm-hmm.
intergenerational pattern can get
Yeah.
evoked, but also unpacked too.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
so it's a two-way street because we're asking for parents to be curious around with their children and discover, right? Like, what do they want? And let them be the guide
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to like the auntie down the street or the family
Mm-hmm.
friend and using their kids' accomplishments as a benchmark. But
Right.
it's like instead of looking out, like looking in within the family, and at the same time with a kid who hears, well, I sacrificed so much for you, can also get really defensive and say like, well, I didn't ask you to, right? So like don't blame
Yeah.
me for it. I don't owe my
Yeah.
life to you.
Right.
and
Right.
and so even the kids being more aware of the
Yeah.
emotions they feel when those kinds of comments
Mm-hmm.
are made, which comes back to why therapy
Yeah.
is so great, is to
Yeah.
like, I love this expression that one of my mentors has shared. You want to slow down to go fast.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
And like really slowing down. Okay, like what came up in your body, right? Like what were the thoughts that were
Right.
going through your head? What was the story that your
Mm-hmm.
mind was telling you? Oh my
Mm-hmm.
gosh, I'm a bad beta. I'm a bad beta like
Mm-hmm.
because I'm now
Yeah.
asking for too much. And
Right. Right.
that is just it pings so quickly, right? That's what the conflicts
Yeah.
look like,
Yeah.
where it's rapid fire and then suddenly everyone's feeling more disconnected. That bridge has more bricks removed.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Mm.
So yeah, when you hear I've sacrificed everything for you, imagine the child in that situation saying, "Hey, mom, hey, dad, when you say that word sacrifice, I feel like I did something wrong. I feel guilty
Mm.
right now and I don't know why. Is there another way you can phrase that? And if you want to define what sacrifice, I want to hear what did you have to sacrifice? I want to know, right? Because that's also not fair to you. You shouldn't have to feel that you sacrificed to have the life that you have today, unless it was a decision that you made, like your own autonomy. But if that
Mm-hmm.
wasn't the case, we need to talk about that.
That's
Right?
so different than the push and pull of
Mhm,
control and who gets to
mhm,
dictate the life. And it changes it to connection. And
mhm.
and it's done through the storytelling. Like the
Yeah.
narrative work. It's like tell me your
Mhm,
story and let's
mhm.
expand and thicken that story, right? I'm wondering what makes it hard in our community for anyone, whether it's parents, children, grown children, to express their vulnerabilities to their loved ones
Or parents to express vulnerability to their kids,
or to anyone, really, to
or
themselves,
to any.
maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. Many parents have not been vulnerable to themselves before, and it's you feel like a fish out of water. It feels very odd. It's like you're doing something wrong because you've never experienced it before. Now imagine doing it in front of others. That's scary. It's like, I don't, let me try to do it with myself first. Like, how to be vulnerable, giving yourself some grace. But can we translate giving grace in Hindi or in Punjabi? I don't know how to say it. It's just like giving grace. Like that's an
Mm-hmm.
American thing, right? Or, so like how can I be vulnerable with myself and not see it as a weakness or see it as something's wrong with me or I'm not good enough. That's why I need to be vulnerable. It's like I'm actually letting the guard down and I'm humanizing myself and I'm willing to learn about myself and the others around me. So thinking about it as a learning experience rather than a
Mm-hmm.
judgment. So we're judging ourselves when we're
Mm-hmm.
vulnerable. It's like, why are you doing that? What's the point of
Yeah.
that?
It seems like it's protective of the self if we
Mhm.
don't show our vulnerabilities, because in
Yeah.
our culture, expressing vulnerabilities is seen as weakness.
Okay.
However, what we're pitching is that actually leading with vulnerability is a way for connection. It is
Yeah.
actually something that makes the relationship and the conversation more tender and helps
Yeah.
people connect with the humanity of
Yeah.
the other person.
Yeah, yeah. And have you ever heard of the saying, something that might be tough for people to be vulnerable? Because we're told, don't keep your heart on your sleeve. Like
Mm-hmm.
someone's going to take advantage of you being so
Mm,
naive, right? Like in the
yeah.
forest, a saying that I always heard, a tree in the forest that is the most straight is the first one that's cut. But if you're
Mm,
crooked and the trunk's a little crooked and you're not really cut, you can live like a survival of the fittest almost, right?
mm-hmm.
So you don't want to be so straight that you're going to be cut right off. So that image has been in my
Mm,
head. But I wear my heart on my sleeve, but I think what's missing is that being a good judge of character. Not maybe you're not vulnerable with someone the first time you see them right away. I think understanding that it's okay to also not be vulnerable at times, but using your own judgment of is this the right space for me to do that? I think that's also missing because I'll often
mm,
hear therapists saying vulnerability is amazing and you should do it. But then working with a lot of South Asian clients, it's so no, but so and so auntie she's gonna rip you to shreds emotionally, right? That's come up. So it's okay. Maybe that particular person doesn't deserve the vulnerability that you're providing. How do we find the green flags here? So now it's like there's a cause and effect here, and it's bringing more control to you, and you're feeling less guilty for being vulnerable because it's for the right
mm,
people.
mm-hmm. Yeah, it's could be very gradual. And you think
Yeah,
about where you're going to get the biggest bang for your buck in that sense. Like,
right,
where will it have the greatest impact? And I think that's
right.
where friendships matter so much. This is something that I've talked about with my best friend a lot, is just how we have played such an important role in each other's lives
Yeah.
because we understood each other and give each
Mhm.
other the space to discover ourselves, and it is
Yeah.
safety. And I think it is what other people in our lives want as well. However,
Mhm.
the safety's not there, but also it's part of practicing being able to be vulnerable and be
Yeah.
curious. And I think that it it can change. It can,
Mhm.
but making that
Mhm.
gradual and making it safe, and then that positive feedback
Yeah.
loop where people
Yeah.
reciprocate too, can
Mhm.
be, especially with
Mhm.
parent-child relationships, can be
Yeah.
um, an evolution. Yeah.
You're right. Right.
So we talked about so much. There was so much wisdom here.
Yeah.
If you had to give one message to an adolescent who's feeling stuck
Mhm.
between what they want and what their parents want, what would you say to
Mhm.
them? And what would you say to parents?
So for young adults, I think honoring your family's sacrifices, you can honor that without sacrificing yourself. And I think that that's a really meaningful take home point that you can build your own narrative without putting down what your family has created. And for our parents, your adolescent, adult child doesn't need a perfect parent. That's not what they're looking for. They're looking for someone that sees them for who they are, that's not going to judge them, and is going to make an effort to understand their perspective, not necessarily agree with it. So create space for your child, and hopefully your child can learn from that modeled behavior and inevitably create some space for you too.
Mm, that's really empowering
Mm.
for both
Hmm.
parts of the system, the family system.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't have to be a perfect parent, and
Mhm.
bringing that curiosity to your child and helping them feel
Yeah.
seen and
Hmm.
remaining there. Because
Hmm.
oftentimes you ask a question, it's like, okay, what was the most difficult part of your day? And then the child
Hmm.
answers, and then you're like, well, you could have done it this way. And then
Right.
suddenly
Right.
it's, what's the follow
Yeah.
up going to be after that? So that
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
child doesn't retreat back into their shell, right? They're coming out of their shell, they're sharing vulnerably. Can you sit with that? Even if you feel bad that your child suffered, you
Yeah.
don't need to fix it. That's not actually what they're looking for,
Yeah.
right? Can
Yeah.
that come up
Yeah.
where it's like, here's a solution to your
Sometimes,
problem?
yeah, they
Yeah.
sometimes they just want to vent. They just want to vent and
Mm-hmm.
let it out. So I think that seeking that permission of like, hey, I have some 2 cents that I kind of want to put in. Are you okay with that? Right? A little speed
Mm-hmm.
bump, but it gives some
Yeah.
pause and clarity for the kid too.
Yeah. Or what would be most helpful for you right now from me?
Yeah.
Tell me more
Yeah.
about this. Having more of that open-endedness to go. And
Mm-hmm.
like,
Mm-hmm.
I love the idea. I don't know where I heard this. I think it was, maybe it was in the context of couples therapy, but I think it was broader.
Mm-hmm.
But it was, if you can make 50% of the things you say questions, that can
Mm-hmm.
really change how a relationship functions.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think I told my dad that recently. I was like, I want you to ask more questions. So I think he's trying.
Yeah.
He's trying. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, we do this work, but we also live it too.
We
So
live it.
it's,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, so
And we don't have all the answers, I always say, because working as a therapist and then also living as a human are two different things. So I go to
mhm,
therapy and I hope every therapist has a mentor, a
mhm.
supervisor, a therapist of their own. We're all evolving every day and there's so
Yeah.
much to learn, right? So
Yeah.
no one's here, no one's perfect. That's not what we're
Mhm.
aiming for.
Yeah. And sometimes it feels like this is a whole nother topic, but like sometimes when I work with ACs and they come to my practice, they want
Hmm.
me to give them answers, like tell me what to do. And it
Yeah,
is like a push and
that
pull of,
happens all the time.
yeah. And I'm like, well, I'm here to help you discover yourself. Like I'm
Yeah.
a guide. It's like
Hmm.
all the answers are within you. I'm just helping you
Yeah.
figure out how to get them out in a way that feels organic, authentic to you, and workable.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's a another one I have to have you come back for it to talk about how
Yeah.
we navigate that in our
Y-
practice.
Yeah. Or how
Yeah.
many sessions until my child's fixed? I hear that a
Yeah.
lot. Is it
Yeah.
4? Is it 6? That's not how it works, but
Wait,
okay.
hold on. My crystal ball is over there. Let me go
Yeah.
get it and let me
Yeah.
tell you.
Let me get my crystal ball. I can tell you exactly how
Yeah,
many
yeah,
sessions.
yeah.
Yeah.
Here, actually, I'm a
Yeah.
pundit, then I'm gonna read the
Yeah.
star charts and tell you.
Right. bring your horoscope chart and I can figure that out for
Yeah,
you.
bring your kundi in here.
Yeah.
We're joking, but this is part of the
Yeah.
cultural fabric, right?
Yeah.
It's what makes it challenging and rich at the same time.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
so,
Absolutely.
Surbhi, this has been phenomenal. Like, really, so great to
Yay.
hear about your
Thank you.
perspectives, the really incredible work that you do, and just how much
Thanks.
you can sit with tension and work
Mhm.
through it with parties who might be seeing the tension very differently. And it is really an art. Therapy is such an
Mm.
art. And I can tell that you're
Mhm.
very artistic,
Thank you.
especially with all the metaphors and the colors that you add. I
Yeah.
would
Thank you.
love for you to share how people can get in touch with you. I'm sure
Yeah.
there's lots of people who are in New Jersey and Pennsylvania looking for a
Yeah.
therapist, but what's the
Yeah.
best way for people to reach you?
The best way is from my website. It's healinglotusmentalhealth.com. I am also on Instagram,
Mhm.
same handle, just an underscore in between each word. My email is serby@healinglotusmentalhealth.com. And I'm also on LinkedIn. So that's the best ways to get in contact with me.
Perfect. Okay, we'll put all that
Yeah.
information in the show description.
Awesome.
Thanks, Surbhi. I really enjoyed
Thank you
this.
for having me.